You are at Rants Incorporated, where I rant about whatever my $10 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one is for Vintage, who says, Rant about Japan. We all know you love Japanese media, but what about the country itself? Its culture, customs, laws that you know of, etc. I know you want to travel to Japan someday, but would you ever want to live there? I would have to say no. I would not want to live in Japan. And the reason is that Japan is an extremely reasonable place. Japan, I keep calling it in my neurotyping videos like a hyper lexical country. It's very much couched in logic and doing what makes sense for the collective. It's a vastly more collectivist society than America, as anybody who I know who's been there will say. And it's funny because I am by and large a person who would fit into that system perfectly. Like, because of the fact that I keep my head down, I mostly, like, I don't try to be, outlandish in social situations, except in that I happen to dress funny. But, like, um, that's stuff that you get away with in America, where, like, I mean, granted, I, was bullied all growing up, but it was because of I think I would have fit in better in Japan, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I consider America and a very impressionistic culture a very intense, like, people are trying to be their own selves. They're trying to be independent and outlandish here. And I grew up in that. And so even though I am more of a lexical thinker and more of a rule abiding type person, I also disagree with the fundamental rules of society. So for me, even though my nature would be to be collectivist, to be a rule follower, if it weren't for the fact that I disagree with the rules. And when you disagree with the rules and you are somebody who is strident about following the rules, you can't put yourself in a situation where you're not following your own rules. So, like, for me, even though I relate to Japanese media, I think partially because of the fact that it comes from such a lexical perspective, where their shows are much more structured, they have much more story, they are, they're just like more carefully constructed than most American shows, which are, in my opinion, built on like a nebulous kind of feel, and like it's rare for me to see American shows that really resonate with me immediately, whereas Japanese media, like, even a lot of their TV shows, movies and stuff, like, I might not be as into that stuff as I am into anime, but it is easy for me to relate to the mindset of Japanese media, but especially the countercultural stuff. Not because of the fact that I necessarily am so radical in my own thinking, but because my thinking seems radical. Like, because of the fact that I'm following my rules seem to radically oppose, like, the systems at large, And so I think a lot of anime is basically like an argument for the argument they're proposing is being extremely unreasonable, but in comparison to regular Japanese society, like, extremely unreasonable compared to American society is, like, very reasonable, Like, anime characters are not that out of control, basically, is what I'm trying to say, compared to, like, the average person on the street outside of Walmart, So, like, it's maybe it's like, I relate to the way that the Japanese think, but not the actual norms of their culture. And because of the fact that I have developed my career around things you can get away with in America, like being extremely loud, drawing attention to yourself, being audacious, as part of my character and my understanding of the rules, it's just easier for me to live here. It's easier for me to live in a place where I can be more secluded, more loud, where I can just get in my car and drive places and, and not have to worry about, like, I don't know. Maybe there are parts of Japan I would fit into better than Tokyo, but I don't know if there would be enough of a reason to move to Japan over living in America, where I speak the language and know people, But and I think the cost of living is probably lower here. Although I guess it depends on where in Japan. So, but like I do think Japanese culture is really interesting. I think all of it's very cool. I've developed an understanding of all of it through just countlessly being involved with Japanese culture my whole life, essentially. So I almost know more about Japanese history and culture than I do about American history and culture. Uh, Maybe not as much about their laws, um, but yeah, just like the attitude of their culture is, keep your head down, be quiet. Anime is counter to that, and that is frowned upon, within their society. And it's frowned upon in America as well, but everything is frowned upon in America because everyone hates each other in America. That's the foundation of the country, and I fit in there. Um, so, yeah, it's hard for me to imagine myself really living anywhere else unless there was somewhere that I felt like was the same like combination of being relatively unhinged but relatively safe. Like that's what I like about America is that it's the people are chaotic in the fact that they don't make decisions that make sense, but they're not chaotic in the sense of being violent because they are like kept fat and docile by their evil corporate overlords. But like in the service of those overlords being able to do whatever they want, it's also fairly easy for me to do whatever I want. So this system makes sense for me. But, you know, that's the unique position I find myself in.